Okay, so it is a cold, rainy, yucky day here on the farm in southern Oklahoma. And I am in my happy place. I do not like this weather, but I love my greenhouse. And I am so excited about getting my seeds started. And I can't start them yet because my greenhouse needs a little work. Now, I designed this thing, I want to say it was 3 years ago. After our barn burnt down, our first barn, after it burnt down, we immediately got the next barn, the new one, built back. I mean, it burnt down at the beginning of January, and we had a full-fledged barn already stocked and everything by the beginning of April, maybe end of March. But at the same time, I designed this greenhouse. And we built it kind of along about the same time, maybe right after, but it was at the same time. And it's been great ever since. I start my seeds in here. Now I do have a main grow bed inside this greenhouse where I grow some things, and I can grow them year round for the most part, depending on what I plant. But this is mostly for me to get all my seeds started early. And it's time. My seeds are in and I'm ready to go. However, last season we had some late freezes and they ended up killing a bunch of my seedlings. And I don't want that to happen again. I had to start all over. So this season, I wanted to do it last year, but I couldn't. This season, I'm about to start a rocket mass heater inside my greenhouse. Now, if you don't know what this is, you need to check it. It's super cool. You can use it in anything. You can use it in a house, in a barn, in a shop, in whatever, but I'm using one in my greenhouse. And the whole gist of it, it's a specific design. You have to get the design, like the specifications right, but it's something that just about anybody could build. And it uses less wood, like by, 90%, than a traditional wood-fired stove or fireplace or whatever. But the whole idea of it is that it burns really hot, but it puts the heat into the thermal mass that you build up around it. And so I have been working away designing how this thing's going to work in here inside my greenhouse. You have to make it work with what you've got. I'm doing a 6-inch J-tube system, and right now what I'm doing today is cleaning out the spot where it's going to go. Now, the spot is where I normally brood my baby chicks, so they're going to have to find a new home when I get the new ones in. But I've been cleaning that out. My husband came out here and helped me carry this big hunk of furniture out, but I've been in here scooping away what's going to go into the compost, and it should be nice and yummy for the compost. But I am about to get going on digging this out. I will be here's what I know. The first thing I'll be doing is making kind of like a Cob Foundation. It'll be our native clay and straw mixed together. I'll be out here in my galoshes stomping it around and then forming it up like a foundation, as though I was making a concrete foundation. That will be insulative, and it will also be strong enough to hold the weight of everything that's going to be on top of it. Now, on one side will be the burn channel where I actually put the wood in, it burns, and then and I'll show you this as I go along. Every step I will be videoing so that you'll be able to see it. But after it burns, it does this big combustion thing inside a barrel. And then the exhaust tubes will run through a bench that will be around in this corner, and it will be covered in masonry. It'll have, I'm using concrete blocks filled with cob, and it will be covered in cob. Now, cob is a natural material. You make it with clay, sand, and straw. And it's labor intensive because you have to dig it up, mix it up and all that, and then smush it on. But it's a good building material to use. People have been using it for, I think, centuries. I mean, it's just like forever. And that's what will be covering it. And that's actually, it's thermal mass. That's what will be holding the heat. As the heat is exhausted through the vent pipes that will go through the benches, that heat escapes into the cob and it holds on to it. Well, if I burn it, say in the evening, then it will hold that heat, and it will, even after the fire goes out, it will release that heat throughout the night and help keep my delicate plants all nice and snuggly. So that's the plan. That's what I'm hoping for. And I'm going to get going on this. Start doing some more digging and some dumping and some more digging. And like I say, I'll show you the process. Okay, this morning I am embarking on yet another project, but this one kind of coincides, or at least the needs of it kind of coincides with the other project that I started yesterday. So I'm doing the rocket mass heater inside my greenhouse, but I need clay and straw to make the base of it, the foundation, if you will. And I'm also planning a hugelkultur bed. So right now I have my big, strong 14-year-old who is super awesome at helping his mama. We are out here digging, I can't see anything, digging right here the trench that will begin our hugelkultur bed. Let's see, that's, woo. Now in this area we have clay-rich soil. So what we're doing right now, you can see this, he is back there helping me, and we are turning over the top few inches where the grass and weeds are, and the topsoil basically. We're digging it up, putting it off to the side on both sides, and then we will be digging up large amounts of clay and taking them on my favorite little cart here into the greenhouse so that I can kind of get started on that process. But this is just the beginning, and I will show you the middle and the end. Okay, so I thought I'd stop for a second and get you caught up on where I'm at right now at this project. So this morning, got up, and I had one of my sons come out, my 14-year-old came out and helped me get started on project number 2 at this moment, which is getting started digging for a hugelkultur bed. Now, you'll learn about that later, but we needed to go ahead and get started on that because we need the clay from underneath the topsoil. So that's what we've been doing. He helped me get the first load of clay. I got the second, talked my husband into going out there and getting the third because I'm tired now. But what we've been doing in here is, I love using repurposed stuff, and we got, we had a bunch of tin. We have a bunch of tin out back, and some of it was some that, you can come in, some of it was some that we had from a workshop of mine from 3 houses ago. When I left that house, I tore the workshop down and brought it with me to the next house and built it back. And then when we left that place and bought this place, tore it down and brought it out here. And we've been using all the different pieces of it for various things. I think we're about down to the end of all those pieces. Here's my husband comes with the third load of clay, but I wanted to show you what we're doing here. Now, step out, see if you can see this behind me. One of the first things that we did, bless my husband's sweet heart, that tin that I was telling you about, he came out here with me and he started cutting and putting up the tin on the studs. Now, one of the main reasons for that is to protect the wood from the heat, but also to kind of bounce the heat back, which is a good thing. Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you. But so that part's done. He got that up for me. And while he was doing that, I was preparing the bottom. Now, let's see if I can show you this. I have the footprint of where my rocket mass heater is going to go. And because of the fact that we've got a dirt floor, when we have a lot of rain, like a whole bunch, our floor gets wet in here. We only have one spot, not here, that actually sometimes stands in water. But over here it doesn't. It just gets wet. So what we wanted to do, just in case, we have a pile of pea gravel that's left over from our natural pool build from a couple summers ago. And you can see about that either on our Two Oaks Farmstead YouTube channel or on our Two Oaks Farmstead blog. You can see all of that process. But I decided to go ahead and start scooping up those. I brought in several loads of that and put it down as a base for drainage purposes. On top of that, I've been putting in a thick layer of our native clay and then wetting it down. Over the top of that, a thick layer of straw, and then over that, another thick layer of clay. And let me show you my boots. You can see those. I've been in here stomping around in it, mixing it up. Now, I remember playing in the mud to be a lot funner when I was a kid. This is hard on the calves, but it does help to mix it in really well. This is the one that I just got through stomping around in, and it will have another thick layer of clay over the top of it, and I will be smoothing it out. When this dries, it will be really hard and solid. Now I know that from experience, because if we were to dig a hole out here and it gets wet, like it rains or whatever, it's basically concrete once it dries. There's nothing you can do to it. Literally, I mean, you just have to scoop it up with a tractor or something and get rid of it, because it's awful. Now, where I'm at right now in this section is I've got the pea gravel down, one load of clay, one layer of straw. There we go. And I'm about to put another layer of clay, wet it down really good, and go to mud stomping again. Hopefully, this will be ready to start drying by the end of this afternoon. That's what I'm shooting for. Then maybe I'll jump back on the hugelkultur bed.
This way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Now. That's working out great. Cool. Okay, guys, it's the end of a very long day. And I wanted to show you kind of where I'm at on this one of the new projects that I'm working on right now. Now, a lot of you guys followed, about a year and a half ago, followed my natural pool project. That was something I studied for like, I don't know, 13 years. I forget. It's been a long time. I studied that one for a long time. And I was finally in a position to be able to put it together. So I did. And a lot of you guys followed it. But I'm not done. I've got a lot more things up my sleeve, a lot more projects to be done. Since then, I built a hoop house, and it's doing very well. Best tomato plants I've ever had in my life. I built a pergola that was on there. We've done a lot of things. Right now, in the greenhouse that I built about 3 years ago, I am currently working on a rocket mass heater. Now, this is also something I've studied for a while. Certainly not as long as the pool. But this is something I've studied on. This is something that you have to, I'm not a mathematician. I can do math, I can teach math, but man, just to sit there and study all the figures and figure out what would work best for me, I was really starting to, like, you could see smoke coming out of my ears. But I've got it figured out. And I'm going to go ahead and plug something here because one of the places that I went to for help, now I like to read, I like to do a lot of reading and research, but one of the places that has done the absolute best for me as far as help on things like this is Permies.com. They absolutely, they're like rocket scientists on there. And I'm telling you, they know everything. And I had a few questions about this rocket mass heater that I was putting together, and they answered them just like that. So if any of you guys are also homesteading and you've got some projects coming up and you really have some questions, sign up with Permies.com. It's free. Just sign up. You can get on their forums, and I'm telling you, there are geniuses on there. Okay, back to my project. I'm going to show you where I'm at the end of, I'll call it day 2, but this is really the day that we actually got started. Yesterday, we moved everything out, kind of cleared the way, and today we actually got started. This morning, I started out, I got my 14-year-old out, and he and I went back behind here, and we started digging a trench for a hugelkultur bed, which is also another project that I'm working on, but that one I'll do a different video on. But we got started on that because I needed the clay that's in this soil for these purposes. So it's actually one good reason for having clay. It's the only one I've found so far. Excuse me. It's been a long day. Okay, so what I've been able to accomplish today. Let's see if I can show you this. Behind me, that is the foundation for my rocket mass heater inside my greenhouse. Now this is my greenhouse, okay? And it gets, super hot during the day. All this glass, I've got clear panels on the southern exposure of the roof, and I've got windows everywhere. So, we have lots of light. My plants love it. We get lots of heat on a sunny day. But if it's a cloudy day, or if we've got freezing overnight, which, by the way, we're going to have tonight. Actually, it's kind of there now. I'm freezing. My toes are so cold or numb. But I've been out here working and getting this thing going so that I can start my seeds and they won't suffer. But if you can look here, what I have done with the help of my husband on some parts, my couple of my boys on some parts, I've gotten this thing ready to continue building. The tin that's up there on the wall is some leftovers we had from a shop building that I've torn down like several times and moved and all that. So that's the remnants of that. We put that up there to protect the wood and also to reflect the heat inward. So that was the first thing. My husband came out, knocked that out really fast while he was out doing some other things, and he's great that way. And while I was working in here, I've done so much digging, it reminds me of the pool. But I've dug up clay, I've dug up gravel, and all of that. But I'm going to give you an idea of what we've done. We started out with a layer of pea gravel that we still had left over from the pool build. And that's for drainage. That's just to make sure, because we have a dirt floor in our greenhouse, and when we get heavy rains, we do tend to get some water. So I want to make sure we have good drainage. So that was the beginning layer. Then I have layered and layered and layered heavy clay and straw, which we always have. I've got a friend who does wheat, and we always get a bale or two or three or whatever of straw from him, and so have it on hand. Thank goodness. So that's what that pile is. Okay, so I got in here with my galoshes on. I layered these on, and then I squished. And I walked around and squished and squished and squished until this stuff was really good and mixed up. And then I put another layer of clay over the top of it so that the straw is not exposed. And we came down here and we troweled, and I used... where's it at? I use the tamper, which we've had use for multiple times on this homestead. This tamper is like super heavy cast iron, but it really does help with making things squish and flattening them out. So use that, use the trowel, and have got this foundation now ready to go. Now all we need is for it to dry out. And this is just basically Southern Oklahoma clay and straw. Now, a little bit later, when I get this thing built, I'm going to be making cob with the Southern Oklahoma clay and straw, and also sand. Now, I also have a pile of sand that's left over from our pool build, just like the gravel was left over from our pool build. So I love that. Don't have to spend any extra money on those products. But what we've got now, the foundation part is built and ready. I'm going to show you where everything's going to go and how this is going to work. Okay, this portion right here, this is where the actual burning will happen. It's a J-tube, 6-inch J-tube. And just to give you just a gist of it, the beginning, the front of it, has a hole where we feed in sticks, wood, that kind of thing. But it's not a big hole. We're not going to put a fireplace full of wood in it. We're going to use smaller sticks. We're going to put them down in there and start the fire at the bottom of that. It's about 12 inches tall. The fire, I'm not kidding on this. This is serious. It burns sideways down a tube that goes to a riser. Okay. The tube will be between 21 and 24 inches. And then the riser will be about 4 feet. Okay. So with the fire's in the front, but it burns sideways down that tube. And then all of that heat goes up the riser, and there will be a barrel. Now the riser will be insulated with a ceramic blanket, but there will be a barrel around that. We have some 55-gallon drums out here. That's what we're going to use. It will be over that and cobbed in, so it'll be sealed. And inside of that barrel is where all this combustion is going to happen. The burning gases will go up the riser, hit the barrel, and they will swirl around all around that channel that where the space between the barrel and the riser, and they will continue to burn and to get hotter and hotter and hotter. I will actually be able to put a teapot on the top of the barrel, which is the bottom of the barrel, and boil water to make tea. How awesome is that? While I'm in my greenhouse planting seeds. Anyway, once that, all that happens, all that heat now it'll escape into here. But the biggest point about this is that out of that chamber will exhaust into ductwork that will come around that little section there. That's where there's going to be a bench. and it's going to be a thermal mass bench. The ductwork will run inside it, and as those hot gases come out and flow through that on their route to get outside, they will heat up the thermal mass that's there. I will be making cob to put around it. There will also be perlite, there will be rocks, and I'll show you every step of the way. But the thermal mass will heat up and hold on to that heat. I'll burn it during the day or in the evening or whatever. And then once the fire goes out, the heat's not gone because it's stored up like a battery pack inside the thermal mass. And then over the night, when my plants need it the most, it's going to release its heat into my greenhouse and making my plants all nice and warm, keeping them from dying like they did last year. So that's the point of this. I am rushing to get this done because it's time to plant seeds again. I am hoping. We'll see what happens. I don't know how long it's going to take this clay foundation to dry. It's going to depend a lot on how much the greenhouse heats up in the next couple of days. But I am hoping to be able to get this handled by the beginning of next week. I'll keep you guys informed. Should be an awesome project. Something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. I think it's going to be great. So you guys stay tuned. Check us out. Get on Two Oaks Farmstead YouTube channel, and also check out Two Oaks Farm Talk blog because I will be detailing this entire process as we go.